So can I talk about that, Ms. Kapoor? So taking Robinson as a given, could you criminalize the status of homelessness?
Well, I have a couple points to that.
It's just a simple question.
So Robinson doesn't address that, and I think it's completely distinguishable. So Robinson was...
Could you criminalize the status of homelessness?
Well, I don't think that homelessness is a status like drug addiction, and Robinson only stands for that.
Well, homelessness is a status. It's the status of not having a home.
I disagree with that, Justice Kagan, because it is so fluid, it's so different. People experiencing homelessness might be one day without shelter, the next day with. The federal definition contemplates various
At the
forms.
period with which, in the period where you don't have a home and you are homeless, is that a status? Could
No.
you criminalize that?
No, it's not. So Robinson talked about addiction like a disease.
You could criminalize just homelessness.
So I want to say first a couple of things. So I think that for the...
I mean, that's quite striking.
No, I don't.
That you think that you can criminalize just homelessness.
No, we're not saying that homelessness is a status, but most importantly, I think the Eighth Amendment is the wrong way to focus on this question.
It's really a simple question. Can you criminalize homelessness? And you're suggesting, yes, you could.
No, we do not criminalize homelessness. I'm not saying...
Could you criminalize homelessness? Not tell me what you do, what you don't do. Could you?
So I think there would be due process problems and vagueness problems. I don't think there's an Eighth Amendment problem in the sense of Robinson, because that was a limited decision where the holding was solely about a disease of addiction. The court was very clear about distinguishing between addiction and possession or use. And so...
You're right that it's a different status that was involved in Robinson. But Robinson made clear that there was a category of cases which were status offenses, which were different from conduct offenses. And when you started off here today, you said we're just criminalizing conduct. So to tell you the truth, I thought that this was going to be a question where you would say, no, of course we can't criminalize a status, but there's conduct here. And then I was going to say, what is the conduct here? But you didn't say that. You said you could criminalize even the status of homelessness. And that suggests to me that you're off on the wrong track in thinking about this issue.
So, Justice Kagan, I think the point where we are disagreeing here is really about whether the Eighth Amendment is the right framework for this discussion.
Well, the Eighth Amendment was the framework in Robinson. And so taking Robinson as a given, where Robinson said the Eighth Amendment protects you against status-based crimes, that's what the question is.
I don't think Robinson extends that far. I think Robinson itself was cabin, and I think the Justice Marshall's plurality in Powell goes into a discussion about this and how that was the right line.
What is the conduct here?
The conduct is camping, establishing a campsite, and it's the same as in the federal regulations that the National Park Service
So I didn't
relies
think
on.
that was the conduct. I thought that the only conduct here was sleeping outside with a blanket.
No, it is the conduct of establishing a campsite, which includes making a bed with bedding or other materials, and the federal law...
A campsite suggests something different to people. It suggests a tent. It suggests a conglomeration of people, tent camps, if you will. But your ordinance does not just prohibit that. Your ordinance prohibits a single person who is homeless, so does not have another place to sleep. That's a status. I don't have another place to sleep. A single person sleeping instead in public with a blanket. That's what I understand your statute to do. Is that not what your statute does?
The statute does not say anything about homelessness. It's a generally applicable law. It's very important that it applies to everyone.
Yeah, I got that, but it's a single person with a blanket. And you don't have to have a tent. You don't have to have a camp. It's a single person with a blanket.
And sleeping in conduct is considered, sleeping in public is considered conduct. And this court in Clark discussed that is conduct. Also, the federal regulations
sleeping is a biological necessity. It's sort of like breathing. I mean, you could say breathing is conduct too. But presumably, you would not think that it's okay to criminalize breathing in public.
I would like to point to the federal regulations.
And for a homeless person who has no place to go, sleeping in public is kind of like breathing in public.
Well, 2 points. So first, even the federal regulations prohibit even sleeping. They don't even require any materials, including but not necessary under the federal regulations. So this is conduct that is understood by jurisdictions nationwide and even the federal government to be conduct that is prohibited. And so I want to make that point. The
I'll tell
second
you the
point.
truth, Ms. Kapoor. I think this is a super hard policy problem for all municipalities. And if you were to come in here and you were to say, you know, we need certain protections to keep our streets safe, and we can't have, you know, people sleeping in any place that they want, and we can't have, you know, tent cities cropping up. I mean, that would create one set of issues. But your ordinance goes way beyond that. Your ordinance says, as to a person, and I understand that you think it's generally applicable, but we only come up with this problem for a person who is homeless, who has the status of homelessness, who has no other place to sleep. And your statute says that person cannot take himself and himself only and, you know, can't take a blanket and sleep someplace without it being a crime. And that's, you know, well, it just seems like Robinson. It seems like you're criminalizing a status.
Well, it is not, and we agree with you that this is a very difficult policy question, and that's exactly why the Eighth Amendment